Hey everybody, welcome to the Ponyville Ciderfest 2017 Attendee Survey Feedback Chat. My name is Charlie Worthley. I am the Ciderfest 2017 Con-Chair and PR Director. Got a couple of our other managers here with us. I've got William Serverat Shager. He's our Operations Director. Hi, Will.
Hi.
Got Vivid Syntax, our Main Events Department Head, a dashing horse man person right there.
Good evening.
Then I've got a couple folks from our tabletop and video gaming departments here. Yeah, enough about us. Let's talk about you. So the purpose of this chat is, of this stream, I should say, is that we're going to be going over the some of the responses that that were given into our attendee feedback survey. In all the times that I've sent out an attendee feedback survey in the past, I have always had every intention of following up with some people, but well, case in point on how I can get busy with things sometimes. I am currently working on editing and posting Winnie City 2017 photos. So yes, it's hard for me to just keep up with stuff. So this time around, what we decided is just do a stream, so that you know, there were in reading through some of the responses, a lot of people had similar. But there were some people with similar comments and some interesting things that I felt were worth talking about. So instead of trying to hopefully find the time to answer them one by one in email or something like that, we are going to do them in this format. It's going to be a lot of talking, not too much to see here, but as we're talking to, you can participate in the YouTube chat, there, and also in addition to taking our own notes. But anywho, so off the top, what I'm really happy about is that, generally speaking, it seems like people had a really good time at Ciderfest. Just for example's sake, once again, just real quick, we will be addressing all of the comments and questions and everything anonymously here on this stream. Even if you said, whether or not you said that it would be okay for us to contact you and identified yourself on the stream, you know, because at the time we didn't say we would be doing this. We don't want to, you know, accidentally break anyone's confidence, and so in that manner. So anything that we say here will be anonymous. We will be doing our best not to identify anyone. But yeah, so generally speaking, feedback of Ciderfest was very good. The kind of like the most important you know, benchmark is just, do people enjoy it? And generally speaking, out of the 125 responses that we got, which is a little more than we usually get on these surveys, you know, the vast majority of folks either gave it a 4 or a 5. And usually the 4s and the 5s are about even. So the fact that, you know, the 5s are more than half of respondents makes me pretty happy. I enjoy that quite a bit. Let's see here. So let's go through a couple of things. So as we talk here, again, if you guys have any questions about anything that I say, and then to any of my fellow managers, if you want to that are in the call, if you want to speak up, if there's something that you want to throw into the conversations, by all means, go ahead and do so. Let's see. So let's see. Okay, so while I'm locating a couple things here to talk about, one of the questions that we got this year, and I think we've gotten every year for every con that I've done, is can I? So like with people to get sponsors, all of our sponsorships include a ticket to the Grand Galloping Gala. And some people have asked in the past, I'm not interested in the gala, or I can't go to the gala because I'm doing something else. Can I trade my gala ticket in for something else? The answer to that is no. And the reason is the way I won't get into the nitty gritty here. I'll try to keep this stream, you know, from getting, you know, too wordy and too long. But putting it very shortly speaking, the way that we have our arrangement with the hotel in terms of using their facilities, part of that is what's called a food and beverage minimum. And it basically says that we promise to order through catering. Now, this is not when you guys go up to the bar and order food, or go to the restaurant and order food or order drinks at like the hotel bar. None of that counts. This is only catering and stuff that we that's the only stuff that counts toward this. And so meeting a minimum, which is quite a lot actually, is part of our contract with the hotel. And if we don't meet that minimum, we still have to pay the difference. And so the catering that we have for the gala, if you've never been to the gala, maybe you don't know. I know some other concept galas and they're included. Ours is catered. We have, finger food of different kinds out there, and non-alcoholic beverages and things like that. That are all that's what your ticket is paying for. And that bill that we get for the gala is a big part of our meeting our obligations with our contract at the hotel. So being able to sell those tickets in advance and pay for that food in advance, essentially with your sponsorships, helps make the con happen. And so even if you're not interested in the gala per se, we've tried in the past, and we did this year, and we're gonna make it more of a point in the future to have sponsorships include a physical ticket for the gala. So if you don't want it, you can certainly give it to someone else. But that's why we aren't set up to be able to allow people to trade their gala ticket in for something else, is because essentially that money has already been spent on food at the gala. So that's how that works. Let's see. Here we go. So I've got a list of things that people think that we should change next year. Okay. Con book schedule. I heard this from a couple people. Do I have one handy? I don't have one handy. Our con book this year, the bar grid schedule that we had in there, between the fact that we added an entire new programming room, we had 3 panel rooms in addition to the main hall this year, and just the denseness, the density of the program that we had. The text on the grid was too small, and we realized that basically as soon as we actually got them in our hands. I think the books turned out great aside from that, but if we keep up that level of programming going forward, we're definitely going to have to reformat that grid there. So I think what we'll probably do is, instead of having it be sideways on one page, we'll probably just have it spread across each day. So like Fridays will be across 2 entire pages, with maybe a little text at the bottom. But for the most part, we'll have to add 3 pages to the book to accommodate. Maybe Sundays we can fit on a single page, but the other days we'll probably have to add in pages to do that. Comic books are fun. Comic books are expensive. We actually found a new vendor. I'll go ahead and I'll plug them too. Pixartprinting.com. They actually, one of my staffers, Eric, he located them, and he got us a price on comic book printing that's significantly better than we've ever had before. So definitely saved us a lot of money there, and yet they're still very expensive. And every time that you add a page of the comic book, you have to add 3 more, because a double-sided sheet of paper is cut up into 4 pages. So your page count has to be a multiple of 4. So it can get complicated. You can never just add 1. You have to add 4 pages. So anyways, so schedule, printing, grid, bigger text next time for sure. Let's see. Somebody said that they wish that there was water more noticeable or accessible during the dance. Server Rat, did you notice any lacking of water? Was there a lacking of water stations this year that I didn't know about?
There was a water station in the back of main events. It's not like we put a huge arrow there, but there is one there. Okay,
maybe we need to see about having another one, especially when the dance and people are getting dehydrated because they're being more active. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Water stations are an easy thing to ask the hotel to add, so that shouldn't be that big of a deal.
There was one in tabletop too.
What's that?
There was one in tabletop too.
Okay, I mean there's supposed to be one in every room, and maybe the bigger rooms we need to have 2, but
there was one during the dance, because I remember calling for a refill during the dance.
Okay, so, all right. So maybe it just needs to be relocated or something like that. But let's see. Q&A session with the guest of honor panel on Saturday. Somebody asked for. Yeah, it's hard because we only have that hour, and it's Tabitha's scripts that she has in there. They're just so much fun that we can't not do them, and so I was hoping that we'd had some time for questions after the fact, but it just ended up taking the whole hour. Otherwise, I totally agree. Having some Q&A in there would have been preferred, but bigger vendor hall. So there were a couple things about vendors, about the size of the vendor hall and the the diversity of the vendor hall. And I'll also expand this to talk about panels too. Some people, it's interesting, we had just as many people say that there were too many panels and they couldn't go to a lot of the stuff they wanted to go to, as we had people say that there weren't enough panels, or maybe at the very least diversity of panels. In case, you know, dear viewer, you've never stopped to think about this. The panels that we are limited to the applications that are submitted to us. You know, aside from the things that the convention runs, like the guest of honor panels, opening, closing ceremonies, charity auction, like, you know, the obviously con run stuff like that. Everything else is put on by our attendees, and so, you know, it's you know, I would love to have, you know, every year I sort of, you know, I kind of think like, oh, there's a lot of this kind. I wish we had more of this kind, and so on. You know, but we are limited to the applications that are submitted to us. So, and the same thing kind of goes with the vendors. There were some people that said, I think there was a comment that somebody said, I wish you had more T-shirts. Well, you know, it's. I would love to say, you know, okay, we'll find some more T-shirt vendors for next year, but that's just not how it works. You know, especially with vendors and them deciding what cons they can go to and they can afford to go to, because we always have more vendor applications than we can fit, and kind of the same thing for panels in some cases. We don't actively go out and seek anything just because we don't have the time or resources to, and we already have enough as it is anyways. So it's my counter suggestion to anybody that feels that we, you know, didn't have the programming they were looking for, or the vendors that they wanted to see, is if you see vendors or panelists that you like, tell them to apply for our cons. You'll let them know that, you know, not every con gives free badges to their panelists like we do. You know, not every con with like the Ciderfest site has been for the last 2 years, and like Winnie City site will now be going forward. You know, not every con gives like dedicated website profiles with, like, you know, mini schedules for every single one of our panelists like we do. So let them know, you know, that you think that we should come, and tell them why. And if they apply, well, then we can have those vendors and those panels. But aside from that, like I say, unless they apply, we're limited to what, you know, to what comes towards us. So. We have, it's kind of, okay, so now this is a little bit more of, it's interesting, because like I was just saying about variety, there were some people, we got probably just as many people in this survey that said that the panels were too dense. Like, you know, they wanted them more spread out, but of course that would be less panels, because, you know, we don't, you know, can't, as much as I would love to, for various reasons, we can't add more hours into the day. And then there were other people that said that the panels were, that we should have compacted them more. Like one of the things that we do when we're writing our schedule is, whenever possible, aside from the rare exception, we always have a half-hour buffer between panels. This allows people to, you know, this allows for the possibility of the panel going over a little bit, for that panelist to, you know, tear down their stuff, maybe pack up their laptop or whatever while the next one's setting up, for the room to change over with the attendees. And so, and importantly, so that in case a panel is running late, it doesn't push the next one forward, because that, you know, when it comes to cons that have panel back to back to back to back without buffers, those delays just domino effect into the night, and all of a sudden you've got the later panels are 2 hours, an hour, 2 hours after they were supposed to be. So we do try and have those buffers for a lot of logistical reasons, like I just said. So that's why we don't make the schedule more compact than we do. But for anyone that said that the schedule was too compact in terms of, you know, I'm not really get what the motivation was behind some of those comments, whether it was, you know, a lot of people said, like, I didn't get to see what the consensus was, is that people said, I didn't get to go see the panels I wanted to see because, you know, that they were all happening always at the same time. Whether that's just bad luck of the draw in terms of just the particular panels that a person wanted to see just happened to be running against each other constantly, or I don't know if it's that or something else, but you know, we do try also when we're putting the schedule to put panels of different types next to each other. So like not to have like 2 or 3 game shows running at the same time. Like we would try and have like a game show and then like a conversation and then like you know, a demo of some kind. Like the idea is that at any point in the day you should have 2 or 3 different types of panels to choose from at any given time. So when we're putting the schedule together, that's what we try and pay attention to. So to those that didn't get to see a lot of stuff they wanted to see because they were on top of each other. I'm sorry, I feel bad about that. I'm just not entirely sure. If you could if you are of that opinion, if you could elaborate on your suggestions, feel free on that. So maybe we can get a better idea of how we could maybe do better. Because I certainly don't want to have less panels by spreading them out even more. But yeah, I'm not. It's just one of those things where there isn't quite any real answer, I don't think. But like I said, let us know your suggestions. Real quick, if anybody's just joining, please do put in any comments or questions in the YouTube chat, which I will now check in with Server. Do we have any questions or comments in the YouTube chat that need addressing?
Nothing that hasn't already been addressed. It looks like.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So managers, tell me what you think about this. Somebody suggested the idea, and I can imagine how this might work, but it's just not something I'd ever considered before. Somebody suggested having basically like a loudspeaker, like an announcement bit, so that like every half hour, or whenever something is starting, there would be an announcement for those, just to remind people, like, maybe for key events, maybe for every event, I'm not really sure, but does the idea of having like a public address system announcing schedule changes, like, what do you guys think about that?
I'm not a fan of the idea because it'll just sound like we're in a department store, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can. Okay, I can see the aesthetic that you're referring to there for sure.
Because it would interrupt ongoing things. Particular in the gaming rooms, some things go for many hours, and so having an interruption every half hour could be rather annoying.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, especially if it's if it's distracting for a situation like that. Yeah.
My other concern with having an announcement is I don't know who would hear it. It gets loud outside a lot of the panel spaces, and I'm wondering, like, if we'd be doing all this work and then we'd be repeating information that's in the con book anyway, and also I don't know that anyone would actually be paying attention or get anything out of it.
Yeah. This wasn't a popular request by any means, but it was a curious one because I'd never even considered anything like that before. So I was curious now what you guys thought of it, but all valid points. The one thing that I would love to be able to do in the future, and some people have asked this before, is why don't we use Guidebook or one of the other app-based program guides that you can have out there? And the answer is because Guidebook is stupid expensive. The free version has a lot of limitations, including I think only like 150 or 200 people can download it. It might even be 100. I forget off the top of my head, but it's very low downloads. And then even on top of that, the feature set is very restricted. And then as soon as you get in, like the next step up, there's no in between where you go into allowing anybody to download it and then like adding some features. All of a sudden it's like $1,500 or $2,000 or something like that. And there's that's it. So I mean that's a if I asked our sponsor group once, would anybody be more interested in us taking the money that we spend on con books and instead putting it in that? And pretty much everybody said no, we want the paper books. So the one thing I think heard they ran out is we made sure to order enough books to go around. So there's always that. Didn't see any books come home with me when I brought all the supplies home. Do you guys? Excuse me, Will. Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea how that ended up?
You cut out for me, but if the question was, did we run out of con books? I didn't get a call asking if we got more con books up in con op, so I'm assuming we had enough for the entire weekend.
Yeah, that's sort of where I was coming from too. I never heard that we ran out, and usually I hear that, so I'm assuming we had enough. So hopefully, I mean, yeah. I mean, yes.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
One idea I think might work if we had a Twitter account that was just for announcements. That we could keep that separate from the regular con Twitter, and so people who already are just using their con books or whatever won't get inundated with notifications. But we could have perhaps feed the data into a bot that can be completely automated. Have
Okay.
the upcoming things come up on that Twitter account. People can check in on it whenever they don't have something to do and just want to see what's going on.
Okay. I don't mind that idea actually.
A YouTube comment suggested that we posted schedule changes outside of registration or in a public area like that.
Yeah, if we had schedule changes, we would definitely do our best to do something like that. I don't think we had any schedule changes this year. Come to think of it, I don't think we had any panelists call in sick or anything like, unless I just didn't hear about it at all. Did we have anything come up, Vivid?
We had one last-minute room switch, just due to a panelist had forgotten to request a projector, and so we switched two people, but we just had someone down there directing people, and it was fine.
Oh, okay. So yeah, yeah, in the cases where we've had scheduling changes or things like that in the past, we've done our best to blast it on social media, but having it be posted near Reg or something like that is definitely something we could do. So this is a sponsor, I'm assuming, said another event or two that are sponsor only, open to all sponsor levels, and or a paid charity event with VIPs doesn't involve food or alcohol, private panel or something. Okay, so taking care of our sponsors and making our sponsors feel like they got their money's worth is super high priority for me. So, and I think especially with the swag that we give, I think we do a pretty good job of that. When it comes to any sort of programming that involves the guests of honor, though, that is so hard. If you would actually go and take go back to the con book and kind of you could at this point, that you have the full schedule there, you could piece it together in terms of where somebody was all day. They don't have time already. I mean, especially on Saturday between with the VIP dinners at events at night, their autograph sessions, which we have to provide because of contractual obligations, guests of honor panel, and then their agents usually say have a ceiling on their start time, just in terms of just an agreement that we have. They need breaks. They need to be able to rest a little bit. And they want to actually, the guests of honor, they definitely do come to work. This is work for them, but at the same time, we don't want to run them ragged. So, we usually try and do everything that we can to fit in stuff like that. But I mean, they're already busy enough as it is. It's hard to really fit in anything else. But things like that, especially being able to provide exclusive events and things like that, anything that I can do to make our sponsors happier that I can do, I will. But it's just hard, especially with the guest schedules. Yeah, more artistry panels, art panels such as drawing from the hats or QA session. Again, yeah, we got to get the applications for us to be able to have those. Kind of related to what I just said, somebody said splitting up guests of honor panels so they aren't all together at every panel. It's sort of the same thing. However, at the same time, I do understand where you're coming from. We definitely have done that before. This year in particular, it was hard to arrange anything like that. But before, we've had writers panels where it was just we had I think we had a panel last year with Big Jim and Jen Blake or something like that, and then just a different theme, different topical panels. We have tried to do that in the past, but hear where you're coming from. Okay, that's right. This one. Somebody suggested spending money on better food instead of hiring a DJ. We did not hire a DJ. That was one of our musicians for that particular person. Hi, Vinyl. I don't, part of our contracts with all of our guest musicians is that we're going to keep it confidential, just to everybody's agreement. But we didn't pay a DJ, and it was one of our musicians that came. So just to clarify that, for what it's worth, with what I was describing before about how the gala ticket prices work, even still on top of that, this year in particular, the gala cost us, I want to say, close to twice what we put in twice of the income that we got for tickets. So there was, it's you know, hotel food is it's not cheap. So yeah, I'm not sure what better food to this particular commenter would be, but yeah, I mean, it's you know, there's already a lot of money going into it, so I don't think we would need to kind of change the entire formula to be able to put more money into it. But then you're sort of backing up against the problem that other people have had. Well, I don't even want the gala ticket. Well, we sort of figured 25 was like a nice round number, just to kind of, you know, pad every sponsorship that we sell with it, and then you know, have the a la carte tickets for the additional people who want to go. So yeah, the formula there is able to change, just because you know, if you were to push one direction with something, you'd be taking away from something else at this point.
Someone on YouTube suggested for 2018 that we get like some kind of thing. If you've been to Ciderfest every 5 years, you get some kind of item that doesn't cost too much.
So that crossed my mind, as a matter of fact. And here's the problem: our first year, we did not use Eventbrite, so I don't have I have a spreadsheet that I inherited from Corey with the pre-reg stuff, but I have 0 at con sales records for the first year. You know, they you know, I don't know how it was done, but yeah. So unfortunately, I would love to do something like that, but we would need to figure out some way of verifying or something like that. Like, I don't know, like personally, I would hope that everybody keeps their Ciderfest badges every year. So I mean, like, if maybe we could say, if you bring all of your Ciderfest badges, like, you know, just do it that way, then we could have something for you. But then the problem is you have no way of knowing how many people you're going to expect, and so ordering you know, a perk like that, it would be difficult. So it sucks. It's unfortunate that I don't have the records from that first year there, but yeah, it's definitely something that's on my mind, though, because I would love to do like a 5-year coin or something like that. I don't know what, but you know, it would just be a matter of trying to figure out exactly how we would be able to tell that for sure. Let's see. So yeah, I think the episode showing that we had on Saturday, as well as the following guest of honor panel, I think that is the only time we have ever had to turn because the room was filled to fire capacity. Didn't see that one coming. You know, it's never happened before, and so we just weren't expecting it. We weren't expecting it to happen this year.
Did it happen this year?
For the episode showing and for the following, definitely for the episode showing, and I'm assuming for the following guest of honor panel, because they were immediately after each other. Yeah, we reached fire code in the room, and we weren't. You know, we were having to turn people away, unfortunately. Which you know, in terms of that room, that, you know, fire code is fire code. You know, I am no fire inspector. I personally think more people could have fit in that room comfortably, but it's not up to me.
It's designed by how many exits you have, plus how the room is laid out.
Okay.
And you know, if we violate it and the guy surprise visits us, we don't have an event for the rest of the weekend. That's how the law works.
Unfortunately, out of our control. So somebody suggested having an overflow room available. I mean, if we think based on pre-reg that we might be running into this same situation again next year, yes, that's definitely something I would consider, because the last thing I want to do is have to turn people away from an event that they want to go into because the room's too full. Like, that's the most unfortunate reason that there is. So if we think there's a possibility that might happen next year, then, you know, we will definitely look into that. But yeah, so, you know, just again, just did not see that one coming. I would love to make the view rotate again. Unfortunately, that is out of our budget. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, if you were at Ciderfest its first year, the view, that restaurant at the top of the hotel, literally used to be one of those rotating restaurants. And then between our first and second year, they completely remodeled it, gutted it out, and disabled the rotating feature of it. It was always interesting too, because as it was rotating, whenever you had to use the restroom, the first thing you had to do was stand up and like look in both directions. At the center, which was staying there, you were spinning around the core, and you had to like figure out, okay, which way is the bathroom, because it was always changing. So that was interesting. Yes, no, I would love for that to come back, but you know. Let's see. Have guests of honor at panels at later hours. Kind of going back to what I was saying before about the guests are already busy enough as it is. Saturday, they're at sponsor events. So I would suggest buying a sponsorship if you want to see them at later panels. And Friday we try and let them, when guests come to our cons, they do want to do some stuff outside of the convention sometimes. I know, crazy. But we kind of block off like Friday night for them to be able to actually go out into Milwaukee and like enjoy themselves a little bit. So it's just depending on the guest and depending on the situation and their willingness to maybe go above and beyond whatever their contract states. I mean, you might see them show up maybe crashing later panels and stuff like that, but that's why you typically, at least with us, that's why you don't see them at programming in the later hours, because Friday and Saturday are sort of blocked off, and then the Sunday they're flying home typically. Let's see. Yes, don't let panels overlap each other. Hard to choose which one to go to. Well, that would mean less panel switch. So it's we've gotten comments both ways on that. Somebody is speaking here. They're speaking highly of Peter New's voice actor workshop from last year, which I know was so popular we had to add a second one. This year, whether or not guests are willing to do something like that, that is up to them, because that's above and beyond whatever what's typically covered in our initial agreement with them. Excuse me. And it just depends on whether or not they are interested in doing something like that. So didn't have anyone express interest in doing one of those, but otherwise, yeah, no, totally agree. Those more intimate sessions with the guests of honor are great. The addition of a space that was segregated from the main area that could be open to anyone for use, a quiet place to draw or just get away from the hustle bustles. Okay, so the commenter here is basically saying that they'd like to have like a quiet room, like an attendee only, like quiet space, and then they're also have less space for this kind of space or whatever. We are literally using every single space that the Hyatt Regency Milwaukee has. We are fully utilizing every single one of their meeting spaces, with the one exception of that weird little tiny panel room that's like it's like literally the size of a walk down by what we call the Oak Room this year. I don't know what that room. It literally has enough space in there for like a table and like 4 chairs.
It's the size of a broom closet. I've seen janitor closets bigger than that room.
Yeah, it's so tiny. Like I don't understand. Like, but they have it like labeled. Like it has a name. It like all the Marquette and things like that. It has a name, but I can't remember what it is right now. But yeah, it's a super oddly weird little room, and I don't know what its purpose of existence is. But aside from that, hotel has, and so we made the decision this year, for example, to the headless lounge for suitors or otherwise we've had that in the past, and that's where we had the Oak Room this year that used to be a headless cosplay lounge. But I sort of felt that was all utilized space, and especially considering that we were competing against our sister FurryCon that same weekend. I didn't really expect a lot of fursuiters, and I think that prediction pretty much panned out. I don't recall seeing that many, a handful. So that's why we decided to make that space into a third panel room. But yeah, aside from that, if we were going to try and add like a quiet taking away from, we'd have to take away one of the existing rooms that we're already using. So, I have no problems with I'm actually quite fond of the concept of having like a quiet room or something like that for attendees, but I have no idea where we would put it. If anybody has any suggestions on a room that, we could
I don't know
what we would do there.
The cider lounge is often pretty quiet. I don't know if it's quiet enough for what people are requesting, but if anybody who hasn't checked it out before, they might be what they're looking for.
And hi Felix. And speaking of the cider lounge, yeah, I was definitely not a fan, and some other people commented the same thing. I was not a fan of the fact that the cider lounge was literally the farthest room away from everything that it possibly could have been. On the very top floor, completely opposite from the elevators. I mean, like, aside from being up in the view, it could not have been any farther away. I was not a fan of that. But you know, and this is why we have never been able to this is why we've never been able to publish the room number that the cider lounge is going to be in advance, is because very rarely do we know what the number is going to be. Just like when you go to check into your hotel room, the cider lounge space for us it's just like we're checking into a room. It's you know, they probably know a little bit ahead of time, but we in the past haven't been able to really find out, just because you know, maybe they have to move it to a different room at the last minute. So but I mean, I would love to have that more central, you know, on a lower floor, like closer to the con space and things like that. But yeah, this year its location was just about as unideal as possible. Yeah, I say that because there were a couple comments of, you know, people said that they wish the cider lounge was not so far away, and I agree completely. Unfortunately, you know, I will definitely press next year to make sure that doesn't happen again at the least. So it's, you know, that that's closer to the elevators, and at the very least, and hopefully on a lower floor. But I'm not even sure, like the executive suites that we have that in. I'm not even sure if there is one of those on every floor. I'm not sure what the layout of the hotel is, so we might be limited on there as well. Anything in YouTube, Will?
Other than you appear to be cutting out for everyone.
Can you guys hear me now? Can you hear me okay? I got a thumb up. Okay.
You cut out for me, but I just assume it's my browser. I haven't updated in 100 years since I used Chrome.
I'm just hearing some minor skipping from time to time.
Okay. All right. All right. Hopefully, okay. I'm seeing it's better now. So hopefully.
If I missed your comment in YouTube chat, can you repost it again? Because it's 100% possible I'm missing something.
Yeah, if you ask the question on YouTube, go ahead and repost it for server out there. Yeah, snacks were the cider lounge last year. They were it was an oversight that we didn't have them this year. We just one of the few things that we just completely just spaced on. So sorry about that. More karaoke. I got a couple comments that they wish that the karaoke panel went later. I'll definitely speak to the panelists that run that and see if they'd be willing to go later next year. Yeah, I personally prefer this Halloween cider theme over the Oktoberfest theme. Yeah, to anybody that has similar feelings, the Oktoberfest theme was a one-time thing that we did this year just to mix it up and do something different. You know, in case you missed it at closing ceremonies, we're going back to just standard Halloween next year. It might be a themed Halloween of some kind. We're thinking masquerade or something. You know, we've got some ideas we're floating around, but generally speaking, it will be Halloween next year, especially because of the weekend. But yeah, no more Oktoberfest. Hi, Felix. Shave Charlie's beard. Whoever said that is fired. You're banned. Don't come back. Just kidding. Keep the video gaming room open 24 hours. So let's actually talk about the video gaming room. There's a couple comments in there. There are a couple people that asked for it to be open 24 hours, and there are a couple people that commented about the ambiance, I guess you could say, in the video gaming room. Just in case you didn't stick your head in there, our video game department head is on the call actually, and so he'll be hopefully, you know, we'll give him a chance to address some of these things. But actually, let me see if I can pick out do a search here. But yeah, suggestions about it being open later are one thing, and okay, so one comment here: the lighting in the video gaming room was too intense, and I got a headache several times. Another comment about it: they wish it didn't close at 2. Seemed like a bad idea to have the karaoke in the noisy / packed / dark video gaming room. Not that there was any karaoke going on at 5 p.m. on Friday anyways, but that was one comment. Let's see what else we have here. Scrolling. Updated karaoke is magic and better sound quality and more mics. So that's a thing. Couple other comments about just the lighting and everything in there, about possibly being too intense or overwhelming, about people either getting headaches or just being overstimulated. So Fred, what do you think about maybe having some lights on periods of time? I'm not, because I love what you do there. I think a lot of people do, but it is fair to say that there's probably some people, a fair portion of our attendees that would like maybe like it to be not. What do you?
Let's see. Might have some hours there, but I'm not going to change the format just for make it less ambionic there. I might during the early dead, I'll maybe leave the lights on. But for 24-hour gaming, I need a staff for that, because I'm not going to pull no 20-hour weekends.
No, yeah,
days,
yes, absolutely not. Yeah, so getting more staff for the video game room it open later. We convention-wise, in terms of just whether or not we can, yes, we can. Like, the hotel doesn't make us shut it down or anything. We for our programming. So
there's more logistics behind just opening a room later, because then you would have to have security people on shift 24 hours a day, because then it's just be a 24-hour convention, which would bring other sections of the convention up 24 hours. So if we're only going to have one room open, I don't see the benefit of making people stay up all night.
That's true. With security and operational support, it is more complicated. That's very true of having just the that's just not something that we've done. But we can think about it. But it would need to be a cross-departmental decision there, because it's Will has a very good point. In terms of having periods, maybe like kind of like Adult Swim periods, like where we it's not just daytime gaming. I don't know. I can it's video game room looks personally, but I can understand that there's there was out of the 125 survey responses that we got, there were like 3 or 4 comments about the room being overstimulated, and so that's a percentage worth paying attention to, I would say. So we can talk about that for sure. No, somebody said we have walked into the game room at multiple cons, but never know quite what to do or get invited to try stuff. Same as tabletop gaming, so we don't quite know how. I think, and I can see that if you walk into a room like that, and unless there's like a sign at the door basically saying, like, I don't know, just some sort of guidance, as far as what to do, or like a tabletop room. This is me not being a tabletop player, but if I were to walk in and see like everybody could just sit down and join in, like, I would feel like I was interrupted. Not that's the case, I don't know, but having some sort of signage or guidance when you walk into the gaming rooms, just to kind of say, guide, is probably something that we could come up with and put together. I think that's a decent idea. I think that is the most common video game stuff there. So let me go back to the general stuff. Organizational autograph lines. Yeah. So one of the problems that I know we had with the autograph lines this year was, you know, the concept of the definition, I guess, and just the terminology of, you know, the sponsors and what a sponsor gets and what they don't. And you know, we got, after Winnie City earlier this year, 2017, I got one person that wrote an email to the con basically expressing this thought, and that was the first time I'd ever heard this being an issue. And then I thought about it, and then we just sort of maintained status quo for Ciderfest this year. But now after Ciderfest, we got several comments along the same lines. So I don't know if anybody that had these comments about you know, about like the sponsorships, I guess. If you've looked at the Winnie City 18, we've, I hope, fixed this problem. The issue is that there's a lot of sponsor perks that start at the second level. So with Ciderfest, it'd be Super Sparkle sponsors. That the perks come in at that level, such as sponsor lounge access, autograph line priority, and basically things along those lines. And so, you know, some first-time Spike sponsor purchasers, for example, with Ciderfest. This is completely our fault too, because even I found myself guilty of this. Is when I was helping out with the autograph lines at times, I would go out and I would say, okay, all sponsors are the front. Well, that's not correct. It's not all sponsors. It's Super Sparkle. And so I think we all sort of fell into that a little bit of just saying sponsors when it's not all sponsors. It's only some sponsors. And we've renamed the lowest tier sponsorship, what previously was a sponsorship badge for Winnie City, is now a patron badge, for lack of a better term. And so that way we can say, okay, so you've got the weekend badge, you've got the patron badge, which is the weekend badge, and then you get all the swag. So you get like the shirt and the glassware and the lanyard and so on and so forth. And then the first tier after that, which used to be the second sponsorship level where all this stuff would come in that we're talking about, is now the first sponsorship level. And so it's just a change in terminology for the most part, but hopefully this will clarify things going forward, so that when we say we have the sponsor lounge, if your badge has sponsor on it, you can go in, and it hopefully it'll make stuff like that a lot more simple. Let's see. How crowded the autograph sessions were. Yeah. Also, just kind of talking about autograph sessions. Had I known how long, especially like you know, so some of the guest autograph lines were going to be, would have opted to split their sessions up into 2 sessions, like an AM and a PM, so we didn't, you know, give people more flexibility there, which usually helps to shorten the lines up and things like that. But yeah, there were just the autograph room with you know, some of our guests was just a lot busy. So hopefully that'll be, you know, we'll definitely address that going forward. If we think that's even a possibility, we'll split up the autograph sessions, maybe have half of them at one time and then half of them at a different time, something like that, with whatever their scheduling allows us to do, basically. So that's a lot of the suggestions, I think. Basically, the majority of that I pulled out of the question that basically said, if we were to change one thing for next year, what do you think it should be? And so good suggestions in there. Anything in the chat, Will, that we need to address?
Not that I'm seeing right now.
Okay.
I've been also responding to them in the chat with like small things.
Oh, cool. Cool, perfect. So once again, just in case you've joined us since the last time I said it, if you have any questions or comments about anything that we talk about on the stream, or just in general, maybe in the survey, go ahead and put it in the chat, and we'll give you a quick answer if it's a quick one, or we can talk about it here if it's a little more complicated. I wish I had more time to to curate some of these questions here. So I'm going to just kind of scan here a little bit. I'll let you guys talk amongst yourselves a little bit, especially Vivid on the program. Anything that did you hear any suggestions that you think that we could do better on next year, or just in general, maybe thoughts that maybe you had of your own?
I think you covered a lot of the major things. Like I said, I know one thing that Dave and I talked a lot about when putting the schedule together was the variety of the programming. We do, like you said, try to make it so there's always a couple things going on and there's a couple different things going on. But we'll make sure we're focusing on that in the future so that we get as broad a variety as possible, even if we have to take a chance on some newer, more out there stuff. Yeah, in terms of like having less dense paneling, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from just people I've talked to saying that they enjoy that there is always something to do and they can sit out panels if they don't want to. And that's people from my perspective, people have enjoyed having a lot of stuff going on. So I think people were happy with overall with the third panel room this year.
Cool. Let's see. If you guys have anything else that you want to throw into the chat while I'm parsing here, go for it. We are a talkative bunch. We are.
A very talkative bunch, Charlie, and you know it.
Yeah. One of the comments from a sponsor about the cocktail hour. Oh, real quick, somebody, I think it was only one, maybe two people that said this, but there was at least one or two people that said that they didn't go to the cocktail hour because they're not 21. We did our best to advertise this, so much as even putting it in the name on the website and everything, but just make sure everybody knows, the cocktail hour is all ages. We do not card at the door. They card at the bar, so we will let you in. They'll stop you if you try and order a beer, but as far as participating in the event itself and being able to mingle and talk with the guests of honor and stuff like that, the event is all ages. So just to be very clear on that, and just in case anybody was not sure. The only events that we have that are not that case are the pub trot, just because of the liability involved with taking people outside of the convention space and everything. There's like waivers and stuff, and so that's why we say that attendees have to be 21 for that. And then any panels that are like alcohol focused or whatever, like especially if there's like alcohol being served, we do card at the door for that. But for the cocktail hour, it is an all ages event. So just to make sure everybody's clear on that. Let's see. Oh, and yeah, this is something that we've gotten before too, about the fact that the sponsored dinner and the cocktail hour are always against the concert. It's sort of unavoidable, just because we can't start the concert later, because then we wouldn't have enough time, and we can't do the sponsor stuff earlier because then it's too early for dinner for a lot of people, and also I've talked about the guest schedule already being pretty crowded as it is. So we altered things slightly this year to try and make it so that at the very least, like in the original first draft of the schedule, when we put the programming schedule together, once we got the concert schedule in, we realized that the dinner was completely covering one of the artists' performances, and so we shifted it a little bit, so at least it was half and half, which is better. We didn't want to completely block off an artist with an event, so we do pay attention to that, but as in terms of not having them be at the same time at all, I'm not sure when we would have either of those things, and the concert kind of is where it is, and same thing with the sponsor events. So it's unfortunate. The nature of the cons that is that you have to make tough choices sometimes, unfortunately. Trust me, I wish more than anyone else that I could clone myself, but you know, it unfortunately is not a thing quite yet. Ba-bum. Some people have asked, some sponsors have asked that they wish that the included packages was a combo voucher. We can think about that, but you know, this is, if we did that, you know, because of the way that, you know, like when we are putting our sponsor packages together, look into how much everything costs us and everything, and just in case, you know, people weren't clear about this, those autograph vouchers that are included with sponsorship packages, it's not that nobody's paying for them; they're not just free. We are paying for them. Yeah. You know, so it to be either more vouchers for, you know, some people that probably asked, you know, for more vouchers in their packages, or combos instead of autographs. That money would be coming out of the money that we make on the sponsorships, and so we could make the sponsorships cost more to accommodate that, but then you're sort of defeating the purpose, I think, of the request at that point. So that is, and I think we did this last year. Because John Galancy's autograph pricing was different than everyone else's, is instead of including a voucher, we basically included a $20 coupon, and you could redeem that coupon for either for whatever you wanted. So we could look into doing that again, but we just didn't do it this year because everybody's, you know, that's just, you know, one less thing I had to have printed, and you know, that so that's a cost I was able to save there. But we can look into that. Let's see. Yes.
I just want to address the question in the YouTube chat about our microphones. So someone brought up that they didn't see anyone attempting to fix the issues with the microphones this year.
Oh,
I can
really?
tell you the problem was not a frequency issue, not a channel issue, not a microphone issue. The microphones that we used were low quality, to just say. And when you spoke into them, you were actually overloading the capsule on the microphone. So no matter what we did at the mixer, there was no way to take out any overload sound or what sounded like interference already in the microphone. There was just nothing that we could do about it. We tried a lot, I can assure you.
Yeah, I'm very proud of our AV team. They are, you know, for being volunteer, you know, for the amount of work and time that they put into, you know, the shows that we put on. It's, I mean, like they, you know, they do absolutely great work. And those, yeah, long story short, Will didn't want to say it, but I will. We're trying to save some money and purchase some equipment this year instead of renting it. All that obvious, you know, in case you never thought about it, like all the lights and the projectors and the big screens and the truss and the curtains and everything, the you know, the black, you know, they call it pipe and drape, that we see up there. We rent that every year, and that costs a lot of money, thousands and thousands of dollars. And so, you know, with Corey, the owner of Ciderfest, you know, getting into more cons, we looked into purchasing some stuff this year instead of having to constantly rent it time and time. And those wireless microphones are one of those things. I personally have a set of those microphones that I've used for a podcast that I used to do, and they always worked fine for me. But apparently, just the rigors of a more active, you know, live music environment, they just weren't quite cut out for that, apparently. So that's what those were. That was us trying to save money, and it sort of backfired a little bit in our faces. So yeah, no more Chinesium for us. Let's see.
Chinese.
Was it Larsis that came up with that term? I love that term.
It's actually a YouTuber that all of us watch collectively, and we've just stolen it from him.
Okay. Well, whoever that is, I approve of your invented word. Let's see. I'm glad you guys liked the glassware. A lot of good comments from sponsors. That's always nice to see. I'm sure this is super entertaining for everybody watching. I'm going to do a little I'm streaming right now, so I don't know what that noise was. A lot of positive comments from sponsors about the Facebook group. That's one of the things I'm most I don't want to say proud, I guess, but I'll use it. That's one of the things I'm most proud of that I've come up with for the sponsors, is having that place for the direct feedback and communication with the sponsors about letting them purchase and how the con is coming together. I'm glad that has been received as well as it has been. Okay. Now as I'm just getting here, I'm getting into some of the nitty gritty on some of this particular panel feedback, which I'll give that. I'll provide that again anonymously to some of the panelists if they would request it. But I won't go over that nitpicky stuff here. Not nitpicky, just more contained feedback. Let me just go down to the bottom and look at the space where people can put in anything else they'd like to add. Con merch, actually. Again, this is one of the situations where I had just as many people complimenting it as I had people. So definitely one of those can't please everyone situations. But in terms of the con merch that we had, the Ciderfest, the shirt, glassware, lanyard, the pins, then we had a couple like stickers and little things like that. Some people were saying that they wished that some people were very happy with it, and some people were saying that they were disappointed by it. I guess I'm curious if there's anything that you would like Ciderfest to be able to sell that you think should be included in our merch offerings. I would be interested in specifically knowing what that would be. It's hard for me to imagine people being interested in like a Ciderfest water bottle or something like that. I'm not really sure what kind of stuff people would want. Especially because that stuff is always an investment. And, it's you have to order like usually with something like that you have to order like 100 of them, to be able to get a per piece cost that's reasonable, and then you have to be confident you're going to sell enough of them to make up that investment. So but yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm babbling now. Any suggestions you guys have for specific hey, let me look over the YouTube chat.
Someone mentioned why Spike sponsors can't use the sponsor lounge, but I think you went over that in the part where I dropped out. Or
yes.
something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, without getting into specific numbers, the sponsor lounge for what happened, but last year, so let me explain a little bit about the sponsor lounge works. Remember when I was talking before, if you were here, if you were listening about the gala and food for the gala, the food, the bags of snacks, the sodas and the water bottles, and then this year we added in the fruit, is all part of that too. We pre-ordered that stuff is all catered in from the hotel. It's not our own stuff, at least with Ciderfest. Every hotel that you'll come across that do events like this, they all basically universally have a rule that is you're not allowed to have any of our own, like we're not allowed to bring in like our own stuff into an event space. When it's a room like the Cider Lounge, for example, that's in a room, then we can have our own stuff up there. So as far as having the cider and snacks and that we normally have in the Cider Lounge, that we can have. But in an event space like the room that the Ciderfest, the sponsor lounge is in, we can't bring our own stuff in there. We have to order from the hotel. Now, take that thought a step further. I'm sure that most of you have gone into, when you checked into your hotel room, you go and you look at, you open up your fridge and you see those 2 bottles of usually of bottled water. They're only $4 or $5 each. That's how much we pay too for all that So when people go into the when people go into the sponsor lounge and they grab, you know, a soda, like a Sprecher soda and a bag of chips, that's about $10 to us. Because that's just how much this stuff costs. And we do it because, we plan to do it because, again, that money, fortunately, all goes to our food and beverage obligations with the contract with the hotel. But something happened this year where there was a miscommunication between the order that we placed in with the hotel in terms of how much they should be putting out. And they put out, like, actually set up, like, on a display in the sponsor lounge.
A lot of chips.
Okay, so I gave them, and this is not their fault. This is just a miscommunication. So like, I don't hold this against the Hyatt so much. Especially because they brought it to my attention and we fixed it on Sunday. But that's beside the point. I gave them a maximum quantity of salty snacks like the chips and things, of the sodas, and of the fruit for the entire weekend. They went and they put that maximum quantity in the room on Friday. They then maximum quantity on Saturday, and then again on Sunday, as opposed to slowly portioning it out through the weekend. You know, and so where I'm going with all this is, I don't know this for a fact. I'm certainly not blaming anyone that may have thought this way. 2 years ago, two Ciderfests ago, I guess I should say, at Ciderfest 16, I think we went through a grand total of something like, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's like maybe 50 sodas and 50 bags of chips, like, throughout the whole weekend. This year we added back in the Super Sparkle tier, which wasn't in it last year, just because we were so gun shy at how much. And this is why, because this year we went through like 300 sodas and like 250 bags of chips, like 200 bags of chips, and like 150 pieces of fruit. Which, thank God, good on you guys for eating healthy. But think about how much I said. A lot more than I expected it to be. So the sponsor lounge is something that is sort of a it's sort of an anomaly in terms of what you plan for, what ends up so hard to predict. And so yeah, what I'm assuming was happening, I don't know this, and I don't blame anyone for doing this if they did, but I can just picture a sponsor walking into the lounge, seeing this literal mountain of potato chips and being like, oh, look at all this, I'm gonna grab one and some for later, and they walk out with like $100 in snacks without even knowing that's what was happening. So I think next year we're going to have to actually put a staffer inside the room and distribute them, just to make sure that either on purpose or accidentally abusing the sponsor lounge. Yeah, the sponsor lounge. But yeah, just that's sort of a revelation that I've had in the last couple of days, where it's just like, that bill's a lot bigger than I was expecting.
Someone wanted us to address priority seating for sponsors. It seems that what I can say from what I saw was that when we had big overcrowded panels, we absolutely always made sure sponsors went in first. But I think we need to like better specify what panels have, like, sponsors get front of row.
I think
exclusive privileges.
And somebody made a comment to me at cons, and I'm going to be honest. I thought that what I'm going to say here is what we were doing, but apparently that's not the case. I thought, and what I would like to do going forward, so Vivid take notes on this for me there, is to actually have a sponsor section roped off. We figure out how many sponsors we have, and we count off that many seats, maybe a little bit of a buffer for the occasional, like child plus one or something like that, and we actually rope it off and say, like, this area is for sponsors only. So letting them in first so they can get seated is a good thing too, but especially if a sponsor was in another panel and they come in late, I would like that area to be reserved for them, even if they aren't there ahead of time. So and then we can just permanently have it roped off, and so that way essentially every panel in the main hall at least has like that sponsor area is what I would like to do. Yes, Brent, you had sponsor lounge access. Read the website.
I'm good.
That's what he's one of my staffers. I'm allowed.
Yeah, he's on staff. He's one of my staffers as well.
I'm allowed to talk to him like that. No, this was answered, but have you thought of moving to a different location with more food options around the venue? For example, the Sheraton in Brookfield next to the Brookfield Square Mall. At the end of the day, we have a very good relationship with the Hyatt Regency. You know, just the way that Hyatts do their contracts and just the way that they operate. You know, Corey's relationship with them, with like Anime Milwaukee and stuff like that. You know, we have a really good rapport and, you know, relationship going with them there. So no, we haven't considered moving to another venue. It would need to be a pretty, you know, a pretty substantial, you know, reason to do so, I think, because I know I've heard from a lot of people, just generally speaking, they love our hotel, just the way it's set up, the way it's laid out, you know, the big open atrium space and stuff like that. You know, I know people are really fond of the hotel. So in terms of moving to a different space, honestly, no, haven't even thought about it, and it would need to be a really good reason for me to think about it, just because, you know, what we have is working out pretty well for us. You're welcome, Colin. It's our pleasure. Colin says, you know, this is in the YouTube chat, so that's why I'm naming names. Thank you guys for putting up with all the stress for the entertainment of others. Thank you so much. You and everybody else certainly welcome. I'm happy to do it. So, anyways, I think, you know, we're at an hour 15 now, give or take. If anybody's watching the stream, if you have a question or a comment that has not been addressed, please re-ask it, because to ask it again. Other than that, I think for the most part, we've covered the general themes that were in the survey. You know, it's in terms of like the specific categories, like registration, people were happy with. You know, here I can put up some of these general bar graphs here. You know, in in aggregate, what's some of the consensus were on some of these things. So here, I'll just pop this up, and yeah, you. So yeah, registration, people were really happy with. That's always good to see. I know, you know, I think we successfully avoided LineCon this year, so that's always a good thing. People were pretty happy with our staff from Railguard. That's you know, that's really important to me that my staff is doing their job. So thank you on that. People were, see, this is what I'm talking about here. Like, people love the Hyatt. You know, it's a very few people had anything negative to say, or even less than great to say about, like, people like the Hyatt more than like my staff. So, you know, take that into account. You know, so you know, in terms of considering somewhere else than the Hyatt, I just don't think that's in the cards. Vendor hall, you know, mostly speaking, you know, people were pretty satisfied with. Aside from maybe, you know, different selection, but again, you know, if there's vendors that you want to see in the hall that weren't there, tell them to apply. You know, we can only have the vendors that apply. Con merch, you know, a little higher on the 3s and 4s, like we kind of talked about, but still generally satisfied. You know, this is my department, so I'm glad to see that for the most part, website and social media coverage was positive. That's good to see. And so yeah, just overall, just you know, high scores. You know, it's good to see that, you know, people had a good time, and you know, no 1s, no 2s. So that's you know, on the general stuff and things like that. So yeah. if you are watching this and you are a panelist, if you would like to get an aggregate feedback and any specific comments about your panels, let me know and I can peel those off and give them to you. Just generally in terms of the rating, and then just anonymously any comments people had about your specific panels, I can do that. Just looking again at the YouTube server, at anything needs to be addressed.
We need more microwaves in the room, and I agree with the statement.
We need more microwaves?
Yes, all the hotel rooms need a microwave.
I'll bring that up to the Hyatt.
Let me actually look back real quick.
Do they have them so if they can you request a microwave for your room, and if so, did they run out? Is that what they're saying, or are they just saying?
No, it's gotten to the point in the meeting where it's just jokes. But
okay. Yep, got it. That sounds about right.
But it's just a general complaint that the hotel doesn't have microwaves, and to address that, it's usually if Motel 6 or lower always has a microwave, but any nice hotel for some reason doesn't have a microwave in the room.
Okay. Would people? I mean, if there was a communal bank of microwaves, like somewhere for people to get to, would people use them? I don't know. I guess maybe we can think about that.
Someone asked for one according to the YouTube tab, and they just don't have them. Oh. Like there's one in the business center, and there's one in the Starbucks if you really want to upset the lady that works there. But like,
well, don't do that. No, I mean, like, if we, the convention, were to just grab a couple $100 microwaves just to have like pecan microwaves somewhere, I wonder if that's something that people would use. I don't know. I mean, when we can do little things like that make people happy. I mean, like, $100 or $200 there is nothing against a multi-$1,000 sponsor lounge bill, so it's totally fine.
I like. Someone else also said posting the schedule in front of each room. And the way I thought of it in my head was that each day we'd print out a piece of paper with the schedule on it, and then we just basically tape it to a pre-existing sign.
When I designed the banners for Winnie City, the first one, Winnie City 16, I actually had a section of the banner where there wasn't like an open space, where I was going to get those plastic sleeves to hold, to hold a piece of paper that you slide it in that would have like that day's schedule on it. It was in the design. I even bought the sleeves. We just never got around to actually printing out the schedules and putting them in there and putting the sleeves up. But it was also that year for Winnie City where there were, at least my memory is telling me that there were a lot of schedule changes for some reason. And so then on the flip side, I came back around and I said, oh man, but if we could have put the schedules up, but then we would have had to, put all this extra work into fixing them, for all these schedule changes and things like that. And so that's why I kind of shied away from the idea of trying to do that again, just because, if there were changes, all the extra work that would create. But also for that Winnie City, I think we also ran out of con books, and so that's why I was thinking about it more. I think for me, I try and have it be so that the making sure that there's con books with complete information, with accurate information, at least at the time of printing, and enough con books to go around, to me feels like it should address most of the scheduling kind of questions that have come up in terms of people being informed about the schedule. But these other things we can certainly consider doing in the future.
I would almost suggest maybe we have like a couple of 55-inch TVs held on the stands and have them with the monitors set up for a computer. Then we could just have any changes automatically update.
We could do even smaller monitors, like those really cheap, Dell monitors that no one uses anymore. The standard one.
Yeah.
I forgot the aspect ratio on that. I think it's 4:3.
Yeah, 4:3, 15-inch. I have several of those myself. It would just be the coming up with the infrastructure of that, and trying to figure out exactly how we would display stuff on the monitors and everything like that. And at the Winnie City Hotel, it's nice because they do have those screens outside of each panel room that do have the schedules. I think all the panel rooms, most of them, if not all of them. But so some of the hotels do have those screens. Hopefully the Milwaukee Hyatt will get them eventually. But
yeah, you can use a USB stick on the TVs. That'll work too.
Yeah,
just have the image.
Yeah, but you know, that's all money and figuring out how to the infrastructure, how to update them, and how to display them. I like the idea in theory, but
I do like the idea in theory, but I see the annoyance and cost prohibitiveness that's in other ranks of doing it.
Yep. Okay. Anything else? Let's see. So Din's Fire is asking, have you guys considered using a Conbook app of any sort? I mentioned this earlier, but I mentioned it again in case anybody missed it. Maybe I was cutting out at the time. Conbook apps are either their free version is extraordinarily limited. Here, you know, actually, while I'm talking here, I will pull up guidebooks. Site gold standard. That I was looking into this, and you know, it just it was not something that we were able to do. So yeah, guidebooks free version. Here we go. Let me put this up. So yeah, I know Guidebook is definitely one of the more popular ones. And so their free version is over here on the first column, and it's limited to 200 downloads, first of all. And this is including people to even access it in a browser, I believe, not even just people downloading it to their mobile apps. And it has, you know, a semi-limited feature set. You know, it's got the basics, but like it doesn't have push updates. It doesn't have yeah, push notifications, send messages to all or specified attendees. So like even if they're in the case of like an update, like pushing out a message to people telling them like, hey, this has changed, just so you know, like people still need to manually look at the app, which is no different than looking at the book for the most part. That's how much they cost. You know, it's just trying to add in another $1,750 or $3,500 into the budget is just not something that we're not. Ciderfest is not big enough to be able to do that. You know, if we were 3,000 plus attendees, then maybe we could consider that. But yeah, at our current size, it's just not economically viable. We would need to not have a paper Conbook in order to do this. And the very strong feedback, especially from our sponsor group when I asked them this previously, is that like 99% of them said, no, I would rather have a paper Conbook than just have Guidebook. And at this stage right now, we would have to choose one or the other. So that's why.
But tell all your friends to come to Ciderfest so we can afford the used Guidebook in a year.
No, seriously. I mean, I have to say I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with our registration next year, because with basically our two between Nightmare Nights and EQLA, we our two closest competitors, so to speak. I don't like to use that word just because we're not
competing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of us work for all these other events as well.
Yep. But there are certainly people that have to choose. They can't go to multiple cons. They have to choose either Nightmare Nights or Ciderfest. I know that's always been a common thing. We've generally been just a week apart, and so it's the percentage of people that can go to both is relatively small. But now that is not going to be a factor. RIP Nightmare Nights and EQLA for a lot of people. It does definitely make me wonder. I'm really, really hoping that we're going to see a big uptick in attendance next year, because more attendees, more sponsors enables us to do more. We can, we, as proven this year, we had so many attendees, we had so many sponsors, we had to go out and get more guests, because the ratio at the sponsor dinner was going to be really bad if we didn't. And even then, I still would have liked to have gotten one more, but we just ran out of time. And so, but if earlier, if we had gotten even more sponsors than we did, we would have had another guest or two, just because we. I don't mean to devolve into this, soapbox, but buyer badges early, please, because it being able to predict and see that makes all the difference in the world. It like, you know, $40 to us now is substantially more valuable than $50 in 4 months, just because it helps us plan and be more confident about making certain decisions. But let's see. Just looking at YouTube chat one more time before I think we can. I know some people were saying that the Wi-Fi was at the hotel was spotty. I mean, I didn't have a problem with it, but I know that I know that some people did. So it's you know, that's obviously out of our control, but you know, it is what it is.
You have a couple hundred people hitting the Wi-Fi at the same time. There's only so much the network can physically do at the hotel. Also considering like they get a certain pipe coming in, and then it's limited for guests, and then the office also gets usually half of that pipe. So by the time you distribute it, you're getting a very slow connection per device.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I see one of the people in the YouTube chat comment that you know, that we had one table that guest of honor, and you know, the just because of you know, we had a couple more people in the room than I anticipated having in there. Some people brought in +1s that I was not planning on, that were allowed to, like on the, you know, on that side of things. And so just the number of sponsors that we had versus the number of guests that we had in that room, it should have been perfect, but then there were just some unexpected people showing up that was you know, completely a 100%. No, that unfortunately created an additional table that I was not planning on having. So, you know, we'll, you know, I definitely don't want that to happen. I mean, you know, like I said, or, you know, at the head of the call, you know, keeping our sponsors happy and making them feel like they were taken care of, and that's up to me, because, you know, as I've said 100 times, and I'll say it 100 more times, you know, it's because of our sponsors that the con is even able to exist in the first place. Is probably, I would say, in the ballpark of at least 80% of our income. I'm just gonna, you know, grab a number there, and so go away, the con goes away. It's that simple. So you know, having the fact that I had these sponsors there without what I feel was a promised guest of honor at their table, you know, we you know, we didn't, you know, we avoid saying that, so to speak, just, you know, I don't know, like when it comes to descriptions and things like that, I try and not say anything that I can't be sure I can promise. And as it turns out, I was not able to promise that. So that's because that we promise having a guest at every table. But of course, I hope nobody doubts that that's the intention. Of course, want to. It just because of varying circumstances, that's how it turned out. So I feel bad. But you know, it's just that's something that we want to fix going. Just the number of sponsors that we had is just it was. I'm not telling people, you know, it's like I don't want to say to people like you know, I wish I had less sponsors, because then, you know, because that's obviously not what I'm saying. But yeah. Anyways, we'll fix going forward. Let's see. Anything else before we wrap up?
Someone had the question of, that I'm curious about too, of how many attendees would it take for us to have to expand to the convention center? Like, what is the actual cap of the Hyatt Regency?
I do not know the answer to that question off the top of my head. I think Anime Milwaukee numbers, I would say, to be comfortable, and I think they're like a 10,000 person con.
Yeah.
So, oops. So yeah, we would need to multiply
a lot
by a factor or two, yeah, to be able to move into the convention center. Trust me, I have dreams. It'll probably never come to fruition just because of the nature of things. But I have dreams of one day being able to have the, you know, is the main hall and then the vendor hall. I'd love that for the whole thing to be the main hall, and then have the vendors, you know, be, you know, in a catered space somewhere else. I'd love to grow to that point, but with our con, it's just probably not going to happen. But maybe I'll be proven wrong. I'd love to be, I have no problems with being proven wrong here.
So remember, tell all your friends and family to come to beautiful Milwaukee for Ponyville Ciderfest.
Well, would you apply for PR? You're pretty good at that.
Well, thanks. Just give me Twitter access, and you'll regret it within 5 months.
Cool. So I think we can wrap this up. We're about an hour and a half. That's definitely long enough. Yeah. So thanks to everybody that put in the survey. Obviously we weren't going to take the time to address every single little comment that was in there. We just kind of wanted to talk about a lot of the overreaching themes. But I promise you, I will read every single thing that you guys put in there, and then any comments that are directed towards specific panelists or specific departments, I'll make sure that those get passed along too. We always go over this stuff. It's not like it just goes into a bucket. So even though I've never emailed you back before, like I said I would, we always do go over it and talk about it. So hopefully this has been illuminating or educational on some of these things for some of you. One last chance to get your questions in on the YouTube chat before we sign off here. Frederick, you got something that you want to throw in?
Not really.
Okay. Notice you were unmuted, so I was just checking. Oh. Other than that, Sean, Vivid, Server, anything else you guys want to add into the convo before we cut it off?
No.
Cool.
Nothing.
Okay. Okay. All right. Looking at YouTube chat, it looks like everything is handled. If you guys have any questions, if you think of anything after the fact, feel free to message like the Ciderfest Facebook page or something on the Twitter account. That stuff all comes to me, and I see it at the very least, and so I'll I try to be as open and transparent as I can be about some of this stuff, just because I feel like everybody understanding what's happening just helps the whole equation. So I don't mind answering questions and stuff like that. But yeah, more beards, definitely more beards. I agree. Managers, go ahead and stick around for a little after chat here. But for everybody that's watching, thanks for hanging out with us. I hope this was at least semi-entertaining for you, and hopefully it will send or Ciderfest 2018. You guys have a good night.